now we're
open to questions. Yes, please.
Questions, please participate.
Yes.
So one of the first things I learned when I started studying is how you can choose what you see and what you hear. And in my case, and due to my personality and job, I have chosen to watch the news. So my question is, how can I protect myself from this opening I'm creating? Not watching the news is not an option. How can I protect myself from all these fears, real, irrational, that I'm seeing through the media?
But why do you have to watch the news?
Because why do I have to watch it? I really enjoyed it. I like knowing about social, political issues, current issues, and because of my job, I need to be informed. It's not an option not to know what's happening with the political situation, let's put it that way. Plus, I'm a journalist. Used to be a journalist, but
well, I would say two things. You know, maybe we don't always think about this, but you know, we think that the mind's job or purpose is to take in information. But actually, scientifically, the most important task of the mind is to limit the amount of information we take in. For example, and this is again scientifically proven, as we sit here in the room, there's more than 1,000 things happening right now in this moment, right? This person might be moving, this person might be, you know, listening, this person might be standing, right? So why is it that we're able to think clearly when there's literally at every moment thousands and thousands of pieces of information entering the mind? Because the mind's most prominent purpose is to be able to filter out 99% of what is happening right now in this room for me and allow me to focus on hopefully what is important for me. So the ability to take in information, but not to be enveloped by it, is only achieved through the daily practice of what we spoke about tonight, which means next time you're stuck in traffic, right? Because, by the way, I watch the news as well, and I would assume, not knowing you well enough, that me and you can watch the same thing, and while we might both take in the same information, one of us might focus and think about it in a negative, right, in a negative way that causes either fear or sadness more.
You experience it differently.
Right, the way we experience. So two people can take in, as happens throughout the world, the exact same information, but one person will take it in and hold it as information. Another person will allow it to emotionally, or at least even in the mind, go over and over and over. Practice, practice, practice. I promise you that if every day of your life, when the small things happen, your sister or brother or mother or father or friend say something you don't like, and you stop and you say, this is happening because I need to, this is only for my good. The obstacle is the way. What is in the way is the way. And you will find that then you will watch the same thing that a week ago got you so upset, and you spent 5 hours, or maybe 5 days, thinking about it, and it makes you sad, and it doesn't anymore, or at least less. Number one. Number two, I would question when you say, and again, you have to watch it, you know, we have to ask, we have to be very thoughtful about what we do allow into our lives. And sometimes we say, I have to, but it might not be, do I have to do 100% or is 70% enough? If we are truly aware of the need for mind hygiene, we're much more thoughtful. Maybe instead of, again, watching 5 hours, we watch 2 hours. Instead of 2 hours, we watch 1 hour. The reason we allow ourselves to go into those situations is because we don't enough appreciate the importance of mind hygiene. So those are the two things I would say. Practice, practice, practice in all areas, and you'll find that watching the same thing creates a negative reality for you less than before. And second, awaken a greater appreciation for the need for you and for all of us, really, of course, to protect our mind.
Thank you.
You know, when I ruptured my tendon, I was not able to move around a lot after the surgery. And so I'd have the news on while I was working. I mean, I never really watched TV. And it struck me that a lot of the news was creating the way the narrative is, it's very alarmist. Like, you know, even about Thanksgiving, you better run and get your turkeys. This year we're running out.
Is there Thanksgiving in
I don't know, but there's Thanksgiving in the world. And
No?
it's everybody eats turkey for the most part. And I'm like, first of all, I don't eat turkey. I'm like, I don't care what and I realized throughout the day, I'm like thinking about like there's a lack, right? Running out of gas. And while there may be some aspect of truth, I don't need to accept that as complete truth, right? So again, as Michael was saying, to protect your thoughts and how much you allow to influence you and come in, because there are other agendas in the things that we watch, even in the news that's reported. And also know that your mind is going to, it hears these things, and there's something called negativity bias, which is it's going to protect you. As soon as there's a perceived threat, how can I protect my sense of survival? And it's something I actually want to talk about, because if we look back at like 10,000 years ago, and you look back at hunters and gatherers, their day-to-day was about survival. So let's say they visited 10 caves in a day, right, to go look for food. And then they looked for nests and eggs, and all but one cave, they found eggs, but in one cave, they found a bear. What are they going to remember from that experience? They're going to remember the bear. Why? So they can be cautious in their day-to-day activities. They can make sure, so you're going to gather all this information and you're going to hold on to it because you feel like you need to protect yourself. So just be aware of everything, right? You can be informed, but you don't have to be threatened or feel threatened. You can be informed, but not feel worried, right? You can take active measures and steps to make sure that you feel secure and you're able to influence others to also feel positive in that way.
And I would only add to that, that kabbalistically, there's a very simple test to know whether the information we're gathering is the right information, whether the emotion we're feeling is the right emotion. Simple test. Is this emotion propelling me to action to do, or is it stopping me? Is it making me not do? Is it making me down or up? And up doesn't mean happy, but I see something, I'm going to act upon it. If you find anything you watch, or anything you listen to, anything you do, any thoughts that you have stop you from action, then you have to limit those. The only thoughts you want to allow and the only information you want to allow is information that propels you to do. Information that, and emotions that lead you to action.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Sorry, what's your name?
Lydia.
Lydia.
Thank you for coming to Mexico City first. I'm going to read it. I have felt that every time I trust my physical body, I have less fear and more certainty in myself and the Creator. How does this relate with the spiritual realm?
Can you explain that a little bit more when you say
Yes.
trust your physical body?
Because when I was little, for example, I was like in illnesses and everything, and now I'm much more healthier. So now I trust my body and I feel certainty. So how does this relate with the spiritual, if it's physical?
Right. Well,
Everything's body, mind, and spirit. And you can't have just one operating and not the other. I think that sometimes we heighten just the spiritual and we ignore other aspects of ourselves. So it goes back to intuition, right? When you, sometimes people ask me a question and I say, okay, ask yourself the question and what feels better to you. Like, should I do this or that? And realize what happens to your body as you say one answer versus the other. When you say the truth, actually, you feel more relaxed. Your back is lifted. Your breath is deep and slower, right? When we feel or say something that is not attached to our soul, our body tightens, our breath shortens. So of course the body is going to indicate things that the soul knows, and it's our way of understanding it and hearing it. So there's no, it's actually to be very connected. Your body, mind, and spirit need to inform each other and work together.
absolutely. I would just add to that. There's a really great book. It's called Why Zebras Don't Get Ulcers. And the idea is, and this is why tonight, even though maybe we spoke a lot about the spiritual, and that's a very scientific-based book, we have to understand everything we spoke about tonight is as important for the body as it is for the soul, for our mind, for our consciousness. Because living in fear, and this is scientifically proven, is actually what creates so much of our disease, so much of our issues within our body. So it is not, to be very clear, everything we spoke about tonight is not simply spiritual concepts, even consciousness, as one would call it, or even hygiene of the mind, but actually, and this is, again, another promise, that as you develop these strengths in the mind, or even from a spiritual place, it will actually be better for your body. So the body-mind connection, as Monica mentioned, is both absolute and learn from each other and necessary. So it's absolutely both connected, and everything we spoke about, even though it is on some way a way of consciousness and thought, it is an absolute influence constantly on our body.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Monica. Hi.
Hi. What's your name?
Andrea.
Andrea. Thank you.
Okay, I'm gonna translate.
¿Ya?
Sí, sí.
¿Cómo le haces para no transmitirle miedo a tus sobrinos o tus hijos?
How does one do not to pass his own or her own fears to other people, including kids or nephews?
Need to work on them.
Well, that's a very, very good question. And I'll just begin it by saying that tonight, again, what we shared tonight is so important. Again, what we shared tonight was not our own wisdom. It's wisdom from ancient teachers. Because besides, as we just said before, the influence on the body and disease, the influence on our children, on our families, it's actually a scientific fact that just as disease is transferred one person to the other contagiously, if you're sitting next to somebody who's nervous, that to some degree will absolutely influence you. You catch fear from those around you. So those of us who think about ourselves, parents, friends, the reason we want to get better at this is not just for ourselves, but I don't want my children to be affected by any fear. If you're sitting in a room with your kids and you're fearful, whether or not they ever hear a word of why, they have now gotten some more fear into their lives. So this work is so important, again, not just for ourselves, not just for our mind, not just for our body, but also because we are feeding everybody around us with where we are. Fear, they get fear. Certainty, they get certainty. So the only thing I would say is listen to this podcast and use it, because the practice we spoke about, the understanding that everything that is happening in my life is the way to elevate me, and therefore I am able to experience the challenges in a way that does not create fear, or at least creates less fear. I need that. I need to be working on that and practicing that, because I want my children, I want my friends around me, I want everybody who comes in contact with me to not be receiving the contagion of fear, but rather receiving the energy of peace that exists within me. And it is absolutely, again, as I said before, there are many scientific studies on this. This is an absolute fact that our state of mind, our emotional state certainly, influences those around us. Absolutely. So the need for practice, the need for really investing the time and effort of everything we spoke tonight is so important, not just for ourselves, but yes, for our family members, for those around us, for our friends, because we are influencing them absolutely all the time, whether they even hear about what we're fearing or what we're uncertain about. Absolutely.
I just want to add, and I wrote about this in Fear is Not an Option, but I used to have a fear of elevators. And it was an illogical fear, but I had it since I was probably 6 years old. And I remember when I was younger, I thought, not when I was younger, when I was older, I thought, okay, well, where did this fear come from? Did my mom lock me in small boxes? How did I develop this? Because it just started one day. No, not that I can recall. But I remember one day I was in an elevator and I became terrified that the doors wouldn't open. I was hyperventilating and pulling my shirt up and down. I was not even a teenager, so it was G-rated. But then when we moved to New York, and I had enough experience with fear and life, and I had started working on Fear is Not an Option, I realized that I'm stronger than the fear, and I don't need to take the fear with me. And I used to climb up 20 flights of stairs in LA to avoid the elevator. But in New York, there's elevators everywhere, and that's not possible. So I don't have that fear anymore. But funnily enough, One of my kids, I'm not going to out that one, developed the fear same age. And I thought, you know, she never saw me have the fear, because by the time she was born, I overcame the fear. So how did she have the fear? Where did it come from? And there is something called epigenetics, which is whatever your ancestors or your parents' parents did or thought actually is encoded in the child. So if your great-great-grandfather smoked, that actually affects you today even. But besides that, what I do, so the point is, even if I hadn't overcome the fear of elevators, you can still offer the remedy to her and maybe she could overcome it, right? So whenever we take an elevator now, we tell jokes, we tell riddles, and I also remind her this is not who you want to be ultimately. You want to be somebody where fear doesn't stop you from going to explore or being curious or doing things that frighten you, right? So help work through the process even if you're not there yet.
Yeah. Thank you. We'll do one more question.
Yeah.
Buenas noches.
Good evening.
Los he escuchado ambos hablar todo el tiempo de espiritualidad. Y si bien es cierto, ahorita en este momento en otro continente hay una guerra, es real. No es un miedo irreal, está existiendo, ahí está.
So I've listened to you tonight to speak about spirituality, and there's a reality happening on the other side of the world, which is a war, and it's something real that it's happening.
Y me gustaría hacerles dos preguntas.
And I would like to ask two questions.
La primera es, me ayuden a decirle algo a mi alma con respecto a eso, nos está escuchando. Estoy teniendo muchas herramientas para poderlo comprender y entender.
Repite la pregunta. No, la pregunta no la entendí. Que si me ayudan a decirle a mi alma. Can you help me understand my soul why this is happening?
Y después, el centro de Kabbalah, ¿cuál es su posición del centro de Kabbalah ante la guerra?
And what's the stance of the Kabbalah Center with this situation?
So I'll answer the question, both questions with one answer. Rav Ashlag, the founder of the center, writes that in our world, there's two groups of people. There are what he calls the builders of the world, those who are involved in doing good not only for themselves, but making things better in small ways and great ways. They're called the builders of the world. And then there are those who are called the destroyers of the world, those who, through action, create destruction, create death. And while, of course, it is important that through political means and otherwise, whenever there are great calamities, wars, destruction in the world, that has its place, but Kabbalistically, we ask the question, what is the root? Why does our world still have war? Yes, there's a war right now, but there was a war a year ago, and 5 years ago, and 20 years ago, and 50 years ago, and 100 years ago, and 200 years ago. Why does our world still have wars? And the answer is, because there aren't enough builders of the world. We collectively, and I say we, of course, not just everybody in this room or everybody listening to us, are responsible for everything that happens in our world. And while, of course, not every one of us has the physical influence to create the change or the cease of war and calamities and destruction and death, we are not, none of us are living up to our responsibility. And therefore, because you're asking a question to the rest of us, not just to presidents or leaders, and what I would say is that if, and this I can say this for thousands of years, the Kabbalists have been speaking about it, to give the example, if 100% of our world, consciousness, desire, and action was to build this world, there would never be any wars. There would not be any destruction. There would not be any death. So for me, and for you, and for every one of us, the question of how do I bring an end to this war, we don't have the answer tomorrow. Not even the leaders have the answer to that question. But we do have what we must do. And the question that we have to ask ourselves is, how do I become a builder of the world? And that has to become into action. Whatever that means for you, whatever that means for me, whatever that means to any one of us. And I promise you that the day that enough of us, I mean humanity, thinks in that way and does what they can to not be a destroyer of the world, but a builder of the world, there will be no more wars. And that really is the position of the Kabbalah Center. And this is the work that we do. We have to change the consciousness of the world. Yes, it begins with a lot of what we shared tonight, but it also begins with that understanding. Our world has two forces, building and destroying. And the only question that I have to ask myself is, how do I manifest? How do I become more strongly a builder of the world? And I would say again, none of us are doing enough. None of us in this room, none of us listening to us are doing enough. We can do more. And that's not, I can't call it the answer, but that's a direction. And really, if you want to ask the question, why does the Kabbalah Center exist? That's the reason it exists. Because we know that when this consciousness permeates the world, when more and more, at least, let's call it 51% of humanity, desires and pushes themselves to be a builder in their life, in whatever sphere of influence that they have, wars will not exist. So that's the question that has to be, we have to ask ourselves. I know I'm not doing enough. I know that I want to be a builder of this world. What can I do more? And when that question permeates more and more people, not only does more good happen, but ultimately, yes, there can be no more wars if the majority of the world is of this consciousness, is of this desire. Thank you.
Gracias.
So thank you again to all of our friends here. We really enjoyed this time with you, and we hope one of many more now that the world is a little bit more open. But thank you all for coming, and I hope that in our sharing this evening, there is something that you can take that creates a positive change, that creates a positive inspiration in your life. Thank you.
Stay spiritually hungry.